Hey guys, here we are again with another installment of the Canary Caper from A to Z Mysteries by Ron Roy. Today's going to be Chapter 8. Dink tried to shrink into the dark space between the bushes. He could feel Josh and Ruth Rose doing the same. His heart thudded as Fred Little stepped closer, then he stopped, took off his jacket, and hung it on a tree branch 3 feet from Dink's nose. He walked back toward the house. Josh grabbed Dink. "Look, he's wearing yellow suspenders." Deke remembered where he'd seen those suspenders. He grinned at Josh. "The Superman clown." "And the giraffe clown. I knew I'd seen him before," Josh whispered back. They watched as Fred Little opened his gym bag. He pulled out a coil of rope and looped it around his neck. Then he picked up the long pole he'd brought with him. Only it wasn't a pole. Fred Little had brought a pair of long stilts. He carefully leaned the stilts against the house and scooted up the footrest. Now, about 10 feet tall, he stilt walked to a spot under a small window on the second floor. A moment later, Dink watched Fred Little slip through the window. First, he was standing on stilts, and then he was gone, like a snake slithering into a hole. The stilts remained leaning against the side of the house. Josh was at Dink's ear. "Should we?" "Shh, wait," Ruth Rose whispered. Suddenly, the rope uncoiled from the window, one end dangling on the ground between the stilts. "That must be how he's coming down." "Let's take the rope and stilts. He'll be trapped inside," Josh whispered. "But Mrs. Davis is in there, with him. We have to let him come out, then follow him," said Ruth Rose. "One of us should run to the police station now." The trouble was, no one wanted to leave the excitement. Suddenly, 3 things happened at once. The upstairs light blazed on. Dink heard a loud scream. A police whistle blared through the open window. Dink leapt to his feet and, not sure what to do. Mrs. Davis was up there, and the burglar was probably in the same room with her. But which one had let out that scream? Dink saw a silhouette appear at the window. A second later, Fred Little was climbing down his escape rope. With his feet still above the ground, he dropped. Suddenly, the backyard exploded in color and noise. A police cruiser roared across Mrs. Davis's lawn, flashing red, yellow, and blue lights. The backyard looked like a fireworks display. The siren whooped loudly, shrouding out the shrieking of the whistle. Then the noise stopped as the cruiser's doors burst open. Officers Fallon and Keene leapt out. "Hold it!" Officer Fallon shouted. Fred Little was still crouching on the ground where he landed. Dink saw his mouth fall open in panic and surprise. In seconds, he was wearing handcuffs. As Officer Keene led the prisoner to the police car, the back door flew open. Mrs. Davis marched out in a white nightgown and floppy slippers. She flip-flopped across the yard toward Fred Little. Her face was shiny with white cream. Some kind of lacy bonnet covered her hair, and she held a long sword high over her head. "The nerve of you, coming right into my bedroom!" she yelled in Fred Little's terrified face. The sword flashed in the cruiser's headlights. Dink thought she was going to use it on the burglar. "I heard you trying to steal my jewelry, to find my jewelry, and I fed you tea and cookies," she shouted. "Come on," Ruth Rose said. Everyone, but especially Fred Little, was surprised to see 3 little ninjas crawl out of the bushes. Oh, we'll go ahead and finish the book. Ruth Rose stomped up to Fred Little and glared at him. "Where's my tiger?" she demanded. Fred Little backed away. "What tiger?" "Tiger is my cat. Did you steal her? Where is she?" "I didn't take no cat. I'm allergic to cats." "What are you kids doing here?" Fred Little asked with a frown. "We thought someone might try to break in tonight. We wanted to get proof so you could arrest him." "This is Fred Little. The guy who returned Mrs. Davis's canary. He's also a clown in the circus. He's probably the one who robbed Dr. Pardew's house and the Gwen's, too, Dink added. It certainly looks that way, Officer Fallon said. He gave instructions to Officer Keene, who locked Fred Little in the cruiser and drove away. Officer Fallon looked sternly at Dink. We'll talk tomorrow. You kids better skedaddle home and get some sleep. Fiddlesticks, Mrs. Davis said. These kids won't perish if they stay up a little longer. And I won't sleep a wink. Come inside for cookies and cocoa, all of you. Officer Fallon just smiled and shook his head as they followed Mrs. Davis into their kitchen. Dink noticed Mozart's cage sitting on the counter. Mrs. Davis put water on to boil and took mugs from a cupboard. Then she pulled the cover off the bird cage. Mozart twittered and blinked his tiny black eyes. You certainly put everyone through a lot of trouble, she told her canary. Actually, Leona, your canary helped us to solve a string of burglaries, Officer Fallon said. I did some snooping and found out a lot about Fred Little and his girlfriend. They've been traveling with the circus and robbing houses in the towns they visit for quite some time, and they always do it the same way. First they steal pets, then they return the pets to get a peek inside the houses. Later, they robbed the same houses. Mrs. Davis shook her head. You should have seen that creepy man's face when I turned on the light. But how did he know I left my upstairs bathroom window open? He probably saw it when that it was open when I turned on the light. Oh, wait. Sorry. Back up. He probably saw that it was open when he took your canary, Officer Fallon said. Or maybe he left it open. He might have snuck upstairs when he used the bathroom. You could be right, Dink. On stilts, he could get into upstairs windows that most people leave unlocked. In the robbery business, he's known as a second-story man. After tonight, that window will be locked, Mrs. Davis said. How did you know that Fred Little would try to break in tonight? Dink asked. We were parked right around the corner. We figured the burglary had to be tonight or never, since the circus leaves town tomorrow. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Officer Fallon stood up, stretched. That'll be Officer Keene back with the car. We'll drive you kids home now. I hope we didn't wreck your yard, Leona. Oh, pooh. You saved my jewelry and caught a pair of criminals, she said. Besides, I know three children who might like to earn some money raking and planting grass seed. Officer Fallon laughed. You could have caught Fred Little all by yourself. Where'd that sword come from, Leona? My husband brought it back from one of our trips, she said, smiling. It's been under my bed for years in case I ever needed it. Did you see that guy's face? I think he was glad to go to jail, Josh asked. Officer Fallon and Officer Keene dropped the kids off at Dink's house. Good night, kids. No more sneaking around, okay? Officer Fallon said. The kids promised they'd go right to bed and watch the cruiser drive away. I wonder if Fred Little was telling the truth about Tiger, Ruth Rose said. All the pets got returned except mine. Tomorrow, we'll help you search, right, Josh? Dink said. Right. We'll ring every doorbell in Green Lawn if we have to, Josh said. Ruth Rose nodded, looking sad. Thanks, guys. The boys said goodnight to Ruth Rose, then walked around back and crawled into their tent. Josh giggled in the dark. Did you see Mrs. Davis come flying out her door with that goop on her face? I thought she was a ghost. Dink grinned. Yeah, and old Fred Little came shooting out of that window like a rocket. I bet he burned his hand sliding down that rope. Dink rolled over and closed his eyes. 30 seconds later, Ruth Rose burst through the tent flap. She shined a flashlight in Dink's face. Guys, wake up, she yelled. Josh bolted straight up. Geez, Ruth Rose. My heart can't take any more surprises tonight. What's wrong? Dink asked, blinking. Tiger came home, Ruth Rose said, flopping down next to Dink's feet. She was on my bed when I snuck upstairs. When I went to pick her up, she hopped down and crawled under the bed. Ruth Rose grinned. And guess what? I found under there with her. A sword? Dink guessed. Nope. A burglar? Josh asked, blinking into the flashlight. No, I found 3 kittens. I'm a grandmother. Well, that was a silly ending to a really good book. I actually liked it. That was very interesting. I hope you guys enjoyed that book as much as I did. These books are really well written. See you next time with another story. Bye.